Hello, everybody, and welcome to Leading Indicator, a show by Public.com focused on gaining insight from the world's best business minds. I'm your host, Kinsey Grant, and today I feel pretty lucky because we are talking about one of my very favorite things in the world, my favorite food group, and I'm guessing one of yours too, ice cream. And understanding the business behind what I objectively think is the best dessert, the rise of vegan alternatives, the realities of seasonality, the intricacies of high-profile partnerships, and so much more, I really think that can teach us a ton about what success looks like for modern companies. So I am thrilled to welcome our guest today, Ben Van Leeuwen. Ben is the co-founder and CEO of Van Leeuwen Ice Cream. Ben, it honestly feels like meeting a celebrity, so thank you for joining me today, and welcome to Public. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And I have to say, before we dive into the business side, we've got a lot on tap to talk about today. I do feel I should disclose that I am a Van Leeuwen super fan. I lived right by the scoop shop in the West Village when I first moved to New York. And I vividly remember the summer of 2018 crying in the scoop shop because you would run out of the royal wedding cake flavor. And I had my heart set on trying it that night. Like, I've really been in this for a while. I now live a block away from the Chelsea location. I'm still trying to get my fill, crying a lot less in the scoop shops. But since I've been in this for so long, I've tried just about everything on your menu at least once, if not twice. I have to know, what is your favorite flavor?
My favorite flavor is Sicilian pistachio.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, one of our classics.
All right, I like it. And I'd love to start too here with just a little bit of kind of the origin story. Tell me a little bit about how you started Van Leeuwen and why, and what it's been like so far.
So I started Van Leeuwen in 2008 with my best friend, and actually we ended up getting married. My best friend and wife at the time, Laura O'Neill. We since separated romantically, but are still best friends and co-founders. And my brother, Peter Van Leeuwen. And the mission from day one, and we didn't call it a mission then, but it was to make good ice cream with good ingredients. And to us, that meant using a lot of the good stuff. So specifically for the dairy, more cream and more eggs than any other ice cream, and no unnecessary stuff. So instead of guar gum and carrageenan to make it thick, lots of eggs and cream. And then we were and remain like really excited by well-made food products, whether it's chocolate or whether it's the pistachios that grow in Sicily or whether it's the variety of strawberries that grow in Oregon and are always ripened on the plant. So combining those ingredients with this really simple base is what Van Leeuwen was and is.
And it's expanded a ton since then, from what I understand. What's the current count of scoop shops?
So corporate-owned scoop shops in the U.S. are 62. We have one partner in Singapore, and that's a joint venture license deal. And we are in about 15,000 grocery doors. So you can find Van Leeuwen most everywhere, within a couple miles of where you live, anywhere in the 50 United States.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's certainly an accomplishment. And, it's certainly right now, I would say, ice cream season. Everybody loves their ice cream in the summer. So tell me a little bit about how business has been this summer so far. I know that at one point you guys were reportedly making like $300,000 a day selling ice cream, which is insane and it's definitely an accomplishment. But tell me how this summer has been. Give me a little bit of insight into how ice cream season has been going so far.
Because we're growing and because I'm eternally optimistic, every summer feels like the greatest summer ever. So this feels like the best summer ever to me. In part because we've grown a lot from last year to this, which means more scoop shops. It means we've learned more. It means we've learned more about what flavors to bring you and how we want collaborations to look. So we've done a lot of cool collabs this summer. One was with Sabrina Carpenter. It was an espresso ice cream with brownies, chocolate chips, and fudge swirl, which sounds really simple. But what I of course love about our ice cream is that we do the simple stuff so well, because I actually think simple stuff in a way is the hardest to do because you have nothing to like hide behind. You know, it's not like a blue cheese ice cream with figs and walnuts, which is like so early 2000s anyways, but like we don't do that kind of stuff really, because to me, it's a cheap trick, right? So we're like, let's make the best vanilla possible. Which is really hard, right? Because it's just this really simple thing that people are used to eating. So how do you give them something that's like a little different and a little better than what they're used to? But another collaboration we just did, which was really limited, which I loved, was Hello Kitty. And for that one, it was a white chocolate ice cream base, which, believe it or not, like I don't think we had done in over a decade, with brownies and raspberry swirl. So again, really simple. But that was awesome. And we like the collabs because for marketing purposes, they expose us to new audiences, you know, sometimes audiences that didn't know about Van Leeuwen before that collaboration. And we hope they'll come and like try that flavor and then also try the vanilla and the honeycomb. But that is, yeah. So the summer has been full of lots of scoops, lots of collabs, lots of new store openings, and many, many more to come. We're opening in the next 12 months. We'll open Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago, Las Vegas, San Diego. So I think that's 5 new states, 1 new city. And we'll continue to open more stores in our existing markets. But what I'm most excited about right now, and then I'll let you ask me another question, is either at the end of this year or in early 2025, we're opening a new concept called Van Leeuwen Flavor Lab. Van Leeuwen Flavor Lab is a kitchen and a tasting room and a Van Leeuwen shop, actually in that order from back to front. And it will be where all of the research and development and innovation for the entire company happens. But it will be connected to retail. So it will be connected to our customer. So on a daily basis, we'll be making sometimes over a dozen flavors a day that might never be made again, that will only be available in that store. And I'll actually be working in that store every day in the back, in the kitchen. So we're going to use it actually as our place to do R&D. We're also going to use it to create a lot of cool content for Instagram where we show people what we're up to. And then, of course, the purpose that I'm most excited about is it'll give us a chance to make something and get the guests' feedback right away versus as we've grown, it's great. It's fun. We have a lot of shops. But sometimes if we develop a flavor, it might take like 6 to 9 months to get it to market, which is good and fine. And we figured that out. But I, came up with, working in restaurants. Then I had one ice cream truck. And then we made all of our ice cream out of a little closed Polish restaurant in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And I could make a flavor and be selling it an hour later. And I really miss that. Both personally, I miss it and I want it. But I also think even for a business of this size, getting that immediate feedback and connecting our R&D team directly to our customer, physically is something that I've actually never been more excited about anything in our business. Yeah.
It sounds incredibly exciting. And I imagine will, to your point, help to solve one of the, I'm sure, at least minor headaches of scaling is that you don't get that direct connection. You don't necessarily have that one-on-one time with the consumer, with the very lucky consumer who comes in.
And I work in the scoop shops probably 3 to 4 days a week for at least an hour or two every day when I'm there. So I get the connection, but what I miss is saying, hey, I just made this. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then they may say, I like this, but, and then we just have all the data too on dozens and dozens of flavors a month.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And I think speaks to what I feel has, and I will say as an ice cream connoisseur, I know the brands, I've tried everything. I think one of the things that sets Van Leeuwen apart is that it does feel innovative. A lot of the flavors that you have might not be flavors that people have seen in scoop shops maybe ever before. And that's exciting. I think another sort of similar vibe in terms of innovation is how much you have innovated vegan options as well. I think you could put 2 scoops in front of somebody and they might not know the difference between a vegan and a non-vegan ice cream. Knowing that you mentioned that part of what makes Van Leeuwen taste like Van Leeuwen is that it is a lot of eggs and a lot of cream, how did you go about meeting the customer where they were, which was increasingly looking for alternatives to milk and eggs and dairy, et cetera? And just tell me a little bit about that process, about adding vegan options to the menu, and about ensuring that the quality kind of stayed in line with what Van Leeuwen is known for.
So when we decided to make vegan ice cream, our R&D kitchen was my house because it was the only place where I could work and not be distracted, and where we actually had 2 feet of counter space that wasn't being used to make the ice cream for the shops. So I went home I wasn't home for the entire 6 weeks, but it was about a 6-week process. And we applied, and this was in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And, I still remember it vividly. It was so fun because we applied the exact same principles we used for the dairy ice cream to the vegan, which are, what are the yummiest ingredients in the base of this ice cream? So in dairy, eggs and cream are really yummy. Guar gum, carrageenan, corn syrup solids, not so much. Would you ever cook with those? No way. So in the vegan, I sort of did the same thing. I was like, okay, it seems like vegan ice creams are using cashews sometimes. They're using coconuts. They're using some more fat from coconut. And then there's all this other stuff like gums and stabilizers. And I was like, I don't want to use as much of that. We needed a little bit of carob because there's no egg. So it's like, what are these key ingredients? It's cashew, it's coconut. And then we said, what about cocoa butter? So cocoa butter, I'd only seen used in a vegan ice cream once before, but nobody who had scaled had used it. And I said, what's awesome about cocoa butter is it has a really high melting point. So it gives you that chew. It gives you that lusciousness. It's also like, without even a close second, the most expensive vegetable fat on the market. But we had no consideration, and this remains today, for anything other than trying to make the best product possible. Because I actually think that's the best business. And I think you'll make a lot more money in the long run doing that versus saying, how do we cut costs? So we ended up with the highest fat, highest calorie vegan ice cream on the market, probably by like 40%. And now this gets really technical. Ice cream is solids and water. The lower your solids, generally the less expensive it will be to make, because whatever isn't solids is water, which is basically free. So our vegan ice cream was really, really high in solids. So it was cashew, coconut, cocoa butter, more coconut oil, cane sugar. And actually we used as an egg replacement, which we were so extreme that we were like, if agar, the seaweed extract, is the most expensive, most scarce stabilizer, and they use it in health foods, it must be the best. So that's what we're using. So for like 2 years, we used that in the vegan, and it actually wasn't as functional as carob. So carob ended up being my egg replacement of choice to give us some more emulsification. But to get even more technical, we thought after about 10 years, we said, we think our vegan ice cream's too rich. So what was happening was everybody loved it, but we thought it was like so rich that you couldn't eat that much. So we took the fat down a little bit. So today it's the same fat level as our dairy, but it used to be even higher. So people would say, is the vegan healthier? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. It has a lot more calories and a lot more fat. But the vegan is like a constant, to me, it's a constant quest, because you're never going to get the umami that like cooked custard gives you, made with eggs and cream, these extraordinarily scarce in nature animal products. So we're always trying to get there. And for years, we experimented a lot with fermentation. So we use many, many different strains of bacteria to ferment coconut cream. We would take sake kasu, which is the fermented rice byproduct of sake distilling. And these were actually my favorite vegan ice creams. And maybe it was a marketing issue, but people liked them, but they never took off. But when we started making the fermented vegan ice creams, I thought, this is it. we're going to absolutely explode. I'm just taking a note. I'm like, we should bring that back. The sake kasu.
Real-time innovation.
Yeah. Sake kasu, bring back. Yes. But yeah, we were doing sake kasu. We tested multiple. This was so fun. We tested like 12 different bacterias to ferment coconut cream. And it was so cool because, some would taste sort of savory like cheese. Some would taste really bright like yogurt. We went with a more sort of yogurty strain. But yeah, I mean, it's something that it's really hard to do. And I'm not an expert on the market anymore because it's become a smaller part of our business, the vegan. I'm not an expert on the non-ice cream vegan stuff, but like, to me, it's been hard to even find like a good vegan yogurt, which surprised me because when we started making all of these fermented vegan products, I was like, this is awesome. Maybe it's shelf stability, because shelf stability is something you never need to deal with ice cream because it's frozen.
Yeah. It I think brings up an interesting idea with the notion of like trends in the vegan food space beyond just ice cream. There kind of has been a little bit of a heyday of vegan alternatives, even for people who are not practicing vegans. And I'm curious what kind of is there the next innovation? Like what is interesting to you? What are you kind of keeping tabs on right now, knowing that you guys are like decently early to the vegan ice cream massive trend. Now there are a ton of Oatly and all sorts of other scoops and scoop shops that are making vegan ice cream. But I'm curious, as you look ahead, what do you think the next big thing might be?
Well, we're going back. So we're moving away from oat. We use oat. We'll continue to use it a little bit, but we went really hard on oat because the market was demanding it. Even though so we actually replaced cashew in most of our flavors with oat. So it remained a coconut oat cocoa butter base versus a coconut cashew cocoa butter base. So I think oat became really trendy, but to me, it's not. I eat like steel cut oatmeal every day and I love that, but oat not in that form. To me, it's like cashew milk's yummier. I don't know if it's healthier or not. And then the glyphosate that is in oats, if they're not organic, is concerning people. So I think we're going to see a move away from oats. Functionally, what I've always found has worked best in vegan is not doing one thing. So it's not saying this is coconut, this is cashew, this is oat, this is cocoa butter, but it's actually using tons of stuff. It can be a little harder to market, right? Because you can't call it coconut or cashew base. In short, I don't know. The vegan market in ice cream has been really mysterious and volatile for the last 5 years. And I think in everything, our vegan sales as a percentage of our revenue have plummeted in the last 5 years since the pandemic. They went from 30% to less than 20%. Which we see in our scoop shops as well. So we just see less of a demand for vegan, but it's such an important part of what like hospitality means to us is making sure like anyone who comes into the store feels taken care of. So that's why if you go into our stores, like the vegan is still substantial. Most of our toppings are vegan as well, because we never want anyone to feel like their preference was like an afterthought. So we'll keep going on it. And we'll likely launch a new line of vegan, a surprising new line with a different base in the next year. But in the meantime, we've launched some awesome vegan stuff. One is a banana bread pudding. We actually also that one's been really popular. We're about to launch a reformulation of our vegan strawberry shortcake, which is going to go from a sort of vanilla base with strawberry jam to a half strawberry sorbet base with a little bit of lemon juice and a half vanilla based swirled. So it'll be a swirl flavor, which have been really popular for us. So you kind of get 2 in 1.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited to try it. And I think that this conversation broadly, it has become abundantly clear to me how much care is put into the ingredient list that is on the back of a tub of Van Leeuwen. If you're buying it at the store, if you're getting it in a scoop shop, that obviously is not free. You mentioned some of the ingredients that you purposely sought out that were not cheap for you to use in production. And eventually that does, get passed on at some point, at least a little bit, to the consumer. So I want to talk a little bit about the pricing for ice cream. Van Leeuwen might cost a couple dollars more than some of the other pints that you see in the grocery store. Knowing that food prices have gone up sort of across the board for consumers in the US, I would love to hear a little bit about how inflation and just inflation trends and pricing trends more broadly have impacted your business.
It's made it extremely hard and far less profitable over the last 5 years. This year we thought it was over, and in February my team said cream prices are way up. We think they're going to go down at the end of the year. It's almost the end of the year. They haven't gone down. And I said, how up are cream prices? And they said, we're forecasting to be $1.5 million over our budget just on buying cream. And that was in February, and it's actually sustained. So it is that. And that's a lot for us. We're not a $5 billion company. So $1.5 million actually matters. And then they said, and then we found out that egg prices were going up too. So my supply chain team, they want to fix things. They want to make things right and make the finances work. They said, no problem. We have a solution. We can drop our butterfat and drop our egg yolks, and we're still going to be the highest on the market. And that will cover half of this cream cost going up. And we'll do a sensory, which is a taste test, and nobody's going to notice. They won't tell. And I responded, I said, you're 100% right. If we do a sensory, nobody's going to notice the drop from 19% to 17.5%. And then when we do it in 2 years from 17.5 to 16, they're also not going to notice. And 2 years later, when we go to 14, which is Haagen-Dazs level, they're not going to notice. And then suddenly I'm on this podcast with you trying to tell you that our ice cream's special, and it's not. It's pure marketing. So I said, we're absolutely not changing a thing about our formula. We're going to take a massive, massive hit to profitability this year, which in the short term might seem like a bad financial move, but like moving the product at all, integrating the product at all, particularly for something that we hope is short-term inflation on those ingredient inputs, I think was just a terrible idea. So we like really, really, really stick to our guns on keeping the product great, and will not waver from that. Part of it is, it's as I said, I think it's better business because people notice, right? And they can tell. But also for me personally, my partners and I still own the majority of and control this company. I would feel like I was full of shit if I wasn't trying to make the best ice cream possible. And if I couldn't very objectively tell you why it was different and better than the other products that we're charging more for. But it's been hard. That would be the short one. It's been really hard. Now, what allows us to survive is our scoop shops, because the margin is much bigger there, and it can take hits. If we were only CPG, it would be a lot harder, and making decisions like the one I just described would be tougher. So the scoop shops sort of subsidize this extraordinary product in tough times when inflation is really, really big. Because inflation is supposed to be getting better, but it's not on inputs for good ice cream, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I think it's an an interesting story in terms of balancing interests, balancing the financial interests, balancing the interests of the consumer, and also just maintaining an approach that is not single faceted. You have a multi-pronged approach to how you do business and how that impacts the way that you make money as a business. So it's been just wonderful to hear more about your perspective on what you've built over the last many years. And like I said at the beginning, I am a huge fan, and it's been such a treat to get a little bit of a behind the scenes look at how the ice cream gets made. So thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you stopping by today.
Thanks, Kinsey. Thanks for having me.
Of course.